This is the big problem for poor countries coming here to Doha. There were promises made in Copenhagen of $30 billion over 3 years, and then a longer-term commitment to scale up to $100 billion by 2020. Here we are at the end of the Fast Start finance period, and there's nothing on the table for 2013. So our real fear is that come the end of this year, finance is actually going to go down next year at exactly the moment that it should be going up.
The EU lead negotiator, Arturun Mexicus, yesterday said there is finance on the table, and that there was no imminent danger of the finance drying up. So who's right here?
Listen, what the EU are saying is that finance will continue, but that doesn't say at what level. And they've actually they've discussed it inside the EU, whether they should say at what level, that it will maintain the Fast Start finance levels or that it will increase. And in the end, they couldn't agree that. All they're saying is that it will continue. So we don't know if that means go up or go down. So we think at this COP, they've got to clarify, they've got to put their cards on the table. How much is coming in 2013? Developing countries have got a right to know that. They've got a plan for adaptation, they've got a plan for low carbon development. How does the EU expect them to make those plans if there's total uncertainty as to what kind of money they can expect in the next few years?
And what kind of money do you project we need? What kind of money is needed to ensure that adaptation and mitigation projects in the developing world continue?
Well, look, we've always been clear that the $100 billion sounds a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. Even that's not enough. So all of the studies that have been done, and Oxfam was made some of the earliest studies on the adaptation needs of poor countries some years ago. Every study that's come out has said that we need more and more money, much more than 100 billion, several hundreds of billions at least, perhaps for adaptation alone. So the needs are potentially huge, but we've got to make a start. And the start is to keep the commitments that were made in Copenhagen, and that means getting to the 100 billion and then having the mechanisms in place to move beyond it. But at the moment, we're going backwards at exactly the moment that we need to go forwards.
I mean, the EU are clearly in a tricky situation at the moment. They can't even agree on their own budget. What kind of solutions could we see on the table? Are there any innovative uses of language or perhaps future conferences that we could see that might sort of allow this matter to be settled here for now?
Well, absolutely. Look, clearly the EU and other developed countries are in an economic crisis. It's a difficult state of affairs for them. They haven't got a lot of spare cash floating around, but that's no excuse. There are concrete solutions that are on the table which can deliver extra money outside of aid budgets. So for the EU, first and foremost, there's about 12 EU member states that next year will go ahead and implement a financial transactions tax. It's what Oxfam has called a Robin Hood tax. We've been campaigning for it for many years. It's great news they're going to do that. The question now is, are they going to use a little bit of that money, maybe 25%, and direct that to the Green Climate Fund? If they did that, that's a new source of money. It's not coming from existing budgets. I mean, it's going to really help them to meet their commitments here at the COP. So we think that the next 2 weeks would be an ideal moment for them to come out and give some indication, you know what, we're going to have this money, it's going to be there on the table, and we'll direct some of it to the Green Climate Fund. That's just one solution. There are others as well. We think that a tax on the carbon emissions from international shipping and aviation is a great source of finance, and every report that's ever come out about sources of long-term finance has said exactly the same. It's a no-brainer. The only question is, can we find the political will to implement it in the next years to get the money that we need? So we're getting near to the crunch. We've been saying this for years. This is not, it's not really rocket science. The options are there. What's missing is the political will. I think that the rubber might hit the road in the next 2 weeks when actually developed countries are going to be forced to say, how are you going to come up with this money? Because if they don't say anything by the end of next week, I think we're going to see some fireworks at the end of this COP.
And you say at the end of this COP, but even people at the start of this COP are talking about a lack of trust, a potential breakdown of trust. Give us a sense of how key this particular issue is to the whole kind of fabric of this conference.
Look, the $100 billion was the glue that stuck the Copenhagen deal together, and we all know that that wasn't stuck together very well. But that was the only real thing that has held these talks in place, that brought developing countries to the table. They knew that developed countries didn't have enough mitigation pledges on the table. Nobody doubts that developed countries are not doing enough to reduce their emissions, but at least they put some money down. And now it seems that they're rolling back even on that commitment of the money. So if they start to back away from the 100 billion, actually, you're right, the whole fabric of this deal that has just about held since Copenhagen will start to unravel. And then we've really got a problem, not just for the future regime, but even for implementing the things that have been agreed in the last couple of years. So it's absolutely critical. Developed countries, when the ministers arrive next week, that they come with a mandate from their treasuries, from their finance ministers, that they've got money, that they've got scope to make commitments, to give the assurances that poor countries need, so that we can implement the agreements that have already been struck in the last years, and that then we can move on and build under the Durban platform towards the new agreements that we need before and after 2020.